I haven't read two of these books, and this is one of the books I haven't yet read. But the person who gave this to me knows how much I loved braiding sweetgrass. But let's just take a look at the cover here. You see these gorgeous leaves of the serviceberry tree. The serviceberry in the spring, before it gets these berries in the summer. It has gorgeous little white blossoms. And the reason I know this, I'm just pretending that there's little blossoms here, just drawing them on here. Imaginary blossoms for you. The reason I know this is that I have planted in my lifetime a few of these serviceberries. So I have planted 4 downy serviceberries, not all at my current house, but at 2 of them at, is it 2? Is it 4 or 5? So 2 of them were at a past house that I planted them, and the other 1, 2, and a third on my new property here. It's a small yard, but I had the room to plant these. They are quite small, relatively, if you compare them with like a maple tree or something. But they can get to, I'm going to say 25 feet, maybe 30 feet tall at max, and they're sort of ornamental looking, like they don't get too full. So there's room for them in small spaces. And these leaves turn a gorgeous red in the fall. So it really is a 3-season interest tree. 4 seasons if you like to look at their bare branches in the winter and dream like I do. You can see this bird here has a serviceberry in its mouth. And one of the reasons I plant these trees, not only because they're native to North America, but also because the robins, this isn't a robin, but robins absolutely love the berries. And I love to watch the robins come and get them and feed their young, feed their babies with these berries. I think they're not quite babies, but like maybe, when a bird is just a little bit older, but still with their mother. And I've watched them go and pick these off the tree. It's so adorable. I love robins. So let's take a look inside, or should we look at the back first? Here we have all flourishing is mutual. That's a beautiful truth. And then we've got some hands here holding some berries and a butterfly. And my dog actually loves to go up to a branch and just pluck off a little berry. It's so cute. And I learned before I let her do that, I learned that these are not poisonous in any way to dogs. So she likes to eat those. The funny thing I noticed about wondered if that was intentional, but I really don't think it is. So the book blurb is here, and I'll read a little bit of it to you. A bold and inspiring vision for how to orient our lives around gratitude, reciprocity, and community based on the lessons of the natural world. As Indigenous scientist Robin Wall Kimmerer harvests service berries alongside the birds, she considers the ethic of reciprocity that lies at the heart of the gift economy. How, she asks, can we learn from Indigenous wisdom and the plant world to reimagine what we value most? Our economy is rooted in scarcity, competition, and the hoarding of resources. And we have surrendered our values to a system that actively harms what we love. Meanwhile, the service berry's relationship with the natural world is an embodiment of interconnectedness and gratitude. The tree distributes its wealth, its abundance of sweet, juicy berries, to meet the needs of its natural community. And this distribution ensures its own survival. As Kimmerer explains, service berries show us another model, one based upon reciprocity rather than accumulation, where wealth and security come from the quality of our relationships, not from the illusion of self-sufficiency. As Elizabeth Gilbert writes, Robin Wall Kimmerer is a great teacher, and her words are a hymn of love to the world. The service berry is an antidote to the broken relationships and misguided goals of our times, and a reminder that hoarding won't save us. All flourishing is mutual. All flourishing is mutual. So we have this upside down page, which is the book blurb. This is a page listing the other books she's written: Braiding Sweetgrass and Gathering Moss. And there's that gorgeous illustration again, the berries. And the illustrator is John Burgoyne. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And she has dedicated this to her good neighbors, to my good neighbors, Polly and Ed Drexler. All flourishing is mutual. There are these gorgeous illustrations throughout, and just take a peek. It's got this kind of edging, if you can see. Just try to hold it up here, and just flip to the back to show you the author. And she's a mother, a scientist, a professor, enrolled member of the Citizen Potawatomi Nation. So I'm really excited to read this. And I think I'll show you the next book here. I'll show you the other book that I haven't yet read. before I move on to the others here. That's this one here, Diana Beresford Kroger, author of books about trees and our relationship to trees and the responsibility that we have as humans trying to protect nature. So again, this is a little bit bigger, this book, than this. And I just wanted to, I said that I would see if there's chapters or if this reads as a long essay. And I'm thinking that it looks like there's some sections, so I will try to slow this down by reading this alongside some fiction, which is what I usually do anyway. So this one, interesting. These are both, I believe, published in 2024. Let's see here. Yeah. And I find it interesting that both covers showcase a beautiful bird on a branch. And here we have, looks like acorns. And some of these leaves don't really look like oak leaves, but this one down here I can see the shape. So maybe since there's acorns there, it might be an oak branch. And so this is called Our Green Heart. The Soul and Science of Forests. I love this. This subtitle really speaks to her style. If you focus in on the word soul, the fact that she included that in the subtitle here, not just the science of forests, because she is a scientist, but also the soul. And her writing style is poetic and heartfelt. She's really passionate, and I'll read a little bit about her. She's the author of To Speak for the Trees, and I think this is the name of the documentary. I think you can search for that in YouTube and find the documentary that she's in. To Speak for the Trees, I think it's the same. It will probably list it in here somewhere. But this was gifted to me along with this book. Because, again, the person knows that here's another book by her, Diana Beresford Kroger, and I have read this one. And I've read a few other of her books. So let's see what it says here. Outside of the contractions of our human heart, there's another pulse that keeps us alive. It is the green forest of a living landscape. The trees of the forest offer oxygen and our lungs receive it. We are made and remade of the breath of trees, with sprinkles of stardust from the cosmos. How gorgeous. And that is a direct quote from this book, and she just amazes me, her writing style. Because she's a scientist, there she is. She backs up everything with her research and there's just something so poetic and I'm not sure the word I would use to describe it, maybe like fanciful and fantastical about her writing style and her ideas, and yet everything is based on fact. I'll come back to this in a minute, but let's look at this without burning the cover. In this inspiring culmination of her life's work as botanist, biochemist, biologist, and poet of the global forest, Diana Beresford Kroger, I'm not sure if it's Kroger or Kruger, but I'm just going to go with Kroger for now, delivers a challenge to us all to dig deeper into the science of forests and the ways they will save us from climate breakdown. So there's that hopeful element. She really offers us a lot of hope as readers. As the last child in Ireland to receive a Druidic education, Diana Beresford Kroger has brought an ancient holistic attitude to the science of trees, which has led her to many fresh insights into how closely we are tied to one another and to the natural world. Her influential message is to pay rapt attention to trees because they are the green heart of the living world, our lungs, our medicine, our oxygen, and the renewal of our soil. Each of the essays, so they are essays, which is great because I find I can always kind of pop in and out of a book like this when the essays are kind of distinct from each other. Each of the essays in our green heart shows us a slice of the natural world through Diana's unique lens, illuminating the way our health, individuality, and as a species is tied to the health of the forest, a tie we ignore at our peril. She maps the science that still needs to be done, but also eloquently the path to survival that her own science has helped to reveal. Planting the right trees in the right places, protecting the last virgin forests, and working to create new ones is our best means to ensure a future for our children and grandchildren on this burning earth. I'm sorry for those last words, but this book really does offer a lot of hope when we have thoughts like that. And can really help us when we are feeling any dismal thoughts about climate change. The fact that there are things we can do, small things, big things. I love this illustration here of the acorns, the leaves. I'm curious to see what this looks like. It's really pretty with the gold lettering. So let's look at some of the, oh, look at this. She starts with what looks like a poem. Yeah, I'm going to look at the contents to see if the essays are labeled, if they have titles. Here are the other books that she's written: To Speak for the Trees, The sweetness of a simple life. The global forest, just this one. Arboretum borealis. Arboretum America. Time will tell. A garden for life. Any one of those books. Any one of them would be highly, highly recommended and very inspiring, I think. So let's look at the dedication here. It says, "To all the invisible people who work so hard to protect and preserve our planet, our green home." Okay, so these little essays are quite short, each of them, which is also nice. Nice for me, since I'm not a scientist, and I would find like really long scientific essays hard to read, but she speaks to kind of every person, I think, and makes the language very accessible and very easy to understand. So, and again, I just love that they're short, because you can be reading a book of fiction beside this and just pick it up and read one of the essays that appeals to you at the time. Kind of like a book of poetry, sort of. You know, when you get a book of poetry, you don't have to necessarily read it front to back. You can just dip in and read whichever poem title appeals to you. So I'll just read a few of these chapter or essay titles. The Red and Green Kingdoms. When the land breaks when the land breaks its silence, the star of nature. The ancient and the subatomic. Forest mast, forest school, hidden in trees. The magic of the kingnut. There's just a few of them. Let's go near the end here. Mission Impossible, Sacred Forests, and Peace. And she gets a reading list as well, which is always nice. And each essay or chapter begins with this cute little image here of the bird on an oak branch. Feed the ocean, hydrate the land. So these are the two I have not yet read, but plan to read this spring. Look at this next. So this is also by this author. It's called The Global Forest, 40 Ways Trees Can Save Us. Again, inspiring. Very short little essays. And I'll just show you some of the titles here. Trees communicate by infrasound, silent sound. Very interesting to learn about how trees communicate. A warning from the forest. And a hedgerow is a living chain of forest. A need for bulb peels the forest apart. The paper trail. Oh, that's a tough one. A tough one. Climate change can be reversed. Simplicity, sustainability, and sanity. The trees tell the story of the Americas. forest and the fairy form the landscape of a child's imagination. I think that this title here segues very nicely into talking about this book. So I'll just keep my thumb here, show you a few more titles to give you a peek into this book. I'm just looking at what I've underlined here about mushrooms. The secret life of the forest slips health into the foraging fauna. The trees and the forests of the world exist in God, the paranormal. Magical trees and mystical forests have antiviral abilities. I've underlined elderberry and hawthorn for some reason. And the sweet savannah. Red and green of the forests are the basic symbols of life. So back to this, the forest, the fairy, and the child. When I was reading this book here, it really connected me with my child self and kind of what I intuitively knew about trees, because it talks about how they communicate, how trees communicate. It just really brought me back to my experience of trees as a child and how I just knew that they were much more than they seemed, that they seemed to have feelings. That's how I would have said it as a child. That they, I would look at their roots and I would think about what's happening here. And when you're in a forest and there's, almost like a mother tree and a baby tree, or sibling trees, or a whole family or community of trees, children sort of pick up and seem to just know that there's a lot going on there in terms of trees making their own society and caring for each other and communicating with one another. And so this book, The Hidden Life of Trees, goes into exactly this, what they feel and how they communicate. I'm not sure how well I worded those thoughts, but hopefully you get the drift of what I'm trying to say. Again, these chapters read as little essays. I think you really can just start anywhere if you want to, or read front to back. You'll probably get more out of it that way. But there's just something about this type of book that I like, especially when I read a book like this a second time. I just start anywhere, like there, and go back to the beginning, and then read chapter titles and see what I'm attracted to at the time and read from there. So in this table of contents, it says here: friendships, the language of trees, social security, love, the tree lottery, slowly does it, and so on. And there are illustrations of trees throughout. It says pine down here. This is textured. You can feel this. So I recommend all of these books so far. And then we've got Braiding Sweetgrass back here. Which I'm sure a lot of people have read. Braiding Sweetgrass. Indigenous Wisdom, Scientific Knowledge, and the Teachings of Plants by Robin Wall Kimmerer. It's got this ribbon here. And you see this braid of sweetgrass. These gorgeous rust-colored pages here. Our dedication here says, "For all the keepers of the fire, my parents, my daughters, and my grandchildren, yet to join us in this beautiful place." It's organized in sections, 3 sections here and 2 here. So I'll read these section titles: Planting Sweetgrass, and a bunch of chapters within there. Tending Sweetgrass, Picking Sweetgrass, Braiding Sweetgrass, and Burning Sweetgrass. And then within those headings we've got Sky Woman Falling, The Council of Pecans, The Gift of Strawberries, An Offering, Asters and Goldenrod, Learning the Grammar of Animacy, and so on. The Maple Sugar Moon, Witch Hazel. So there's some gorgeous illustrations in here. And I have to say that I learned a lot from this. I could definitely read this again because I have forgotten, just as I'm looking at this now, the headings, forgotten some of it. But what I did take away, I have, it's influenced me in some practical ways, along with some just giving me knowledge and perspective. It has also, like I say, given me some tools and some ideas. For example, in the, look at that gorgeous bee. I think there's, asters and goldenrod. She talks about planting those 2 together and seeing the 2 colors of the bluey purple and the golden yellow together. It's a beautiful essay or chapter. And then also I really enjoyed Maple Sugar Moon and Witch Hazel, a mother's work. In the Footsteps of Nanobozo, that was a nice highly, highly recommend this one. And also here, speaking of practical, a garden for the rusty-badged bumblebee, creating habitat for native pollinators. This is by Lorraine Johnson and Sheila Kola, with illustrations by Anne Sanderson. This author, Lorraine Johnson, maybe both of them are on the other books, but I think they've written more than one of these for different regions. So depending on where you're located in North America, you can find the native plants in those books that pertain to your specific region, area. So this just is very, very practical. It does offer a lot of, in the beginning, the why plant, native plants, and then it goes on to talk about the how to plant them, and so native plants matter, that's the why, and then the how and the what. So by that I mean it gives a lot of page after page after page of plants. I'm just trying to see where that starts. And they have grouped these plants by when they bloom time. So spring blooming, summer, and fall. So you plant a little bit of everything, so you've got something blooming at all times of the growing seasons. And each plant, each description will share the height and the blooming period, the exposure, so light requirements, and the kind of soil that it likes, and the kind of planting companions that work well with it. So this goes on and on until, it has trees, bushes, flowers, and then back here, I think, is it back here? Yeah, a few designs that you can follow. Is that back here? I see ferns. So here's sample garden designs, yes. So if you live in an apartment, she gives a design example and some different spring blooming, summer blooming, and fall blooming plants that you can grow in pots and baskets, boxes. And here is a community garden that if you have access to one of these in your community, in your city or town, some good ideas for that. A public patch, a high density residential garden. Here's one idea for sun. This is for a shade garden. And I think there's some plans in here somewhere for a rain garden and a woodland garden and some different suggestions for different books. So this has been a very handy reference guide for me. It's fairly new. I think it's only a couple of years old. And I try to plant native plants, but I do have a few non-native plants that have a special meaning to me that I include in my garden as well, because, well, because of sentimental value. So all I can do is keep trying to learn more about these native plants and how to work with them. I can say for sure that they have been my hardiest plants, the easiest to grow, and they almost take care of themselves. And I definitely see a lot more pollinators, bees, butterflies around the native plants as opposed to the ones you just get from the nursery, the cultivars. Thanks so much for watching, for joining me. I hope you found this show and tell of some of my nature books. I hope you found it very relaxing, and I hope it brought you into a peaceful state. Until next time.